How you guys doing today? Good to see you. I want to welcome those of you watching via video. Glad that you're joining us today as well. Church Online, thanks for tuning in. We're starting a new series today called Playing Favorites, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to tell you kind of why we're calling that here in just a second. But basically, what we've been doing over the last year or so in some of our series is going through the book of James in the New Testament, book of James. And so those of you guys that hadn't been here know a little bit more about James. He was the brother of Jesus, okay? And growing up, he didn't believe his brother was all that he claimed to be, okay? He's like his brother. He's like, I'm not even sure he's this guy, you know, and he's God and Son of God, and I don't even know. And he didn't believe in his brother, the Bible says, until he saw Jesus risen from the dead. Then he was like, I think you are who you claim to be. Oh my goodness, yeah, hey, that's Jesus, oh my gosh. And so he believes in him, becomes a follower of Jesus, and starts telling everybody about him, becomes a pastor of a church in Jerusalem. Is this huge church. And in time, there was persecution, and so the church ended up scattering in the regions kind of around Jerusalem. And so he didn't have a church anymore. It's about 10 years later, he writes him a letter, and we have it in our New Testament. It's pretty cool. We got his letter to these people that used to be in his church, and it's called the book of James. It's a letter that James wrote them. So we've been going through it. So just curious, last year, Easter, Man in the Mirror. How many guys were here? Man in the Mirror, okay. That was James chapter 1, if you remember. And then Christmas series, last Christmas series, LOL. How many guys here for LOL? That was the second part of James chapter 2. And so we're just tracking through James. Fantastic book. And in this series, I wanted to spend 2 weeks just on the first part of James chapter 2. Because in the very first verse of James chapter 2, he asks a very interesting, thought-provoking question that I think is so relevant to us today. And what's so cool about the book of James is he's encouraging these people he's writing to in their trials. They were going through some difficult times. And he was challenging them to be doers of the word, not just hearers of the word, like to live this thing out. And so much of what he's saying to them applies directly to us. If you got a Bible, let me show you this question I want to camp out on for 2 weeks. If you got a Bible, James chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. James 2, beginning in verse 1. You'll see what this whole playing favorites thing is all about. Now, I get it. Like, you hear playing favorites, and some of you follow us on Facebook. If you don't, let's hook up on Facebook, okay? But we asked this week, hey, what do you think of when you think of playing favorites? And people think of, some parents with their kids, it seems like they favor one child over another, or a child favors one parent over another, or a boss favors an employee over another. And usually we don't like it unless we're the one favored, okay? And then they always like, yeah, I like playing favorites, okay? But if we're not, it's not always a good thing, and you're going to see James address it here as well. This is page 290 in these. You got one of these? This is just an easy to understand translation of the New Testament we pass out all of our campuses. If you'd like one, it's for free. It's on us. Nobody will accuse you of stealing when you leave the building today. Okay, so this is for you. Page 290. Let's look at this question together. We're going to camp out here for 2 weeks. Very good question. We should ask ourselves this question. James 2, verse 1, he says this, my dear brothers and sisters, he's writing to his church. These are Christians, okay? Most of them are Christians. My dear brothers and sisters, how can you claim to have faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ if you favor some people over others? In other words, how can you claim, he's saying to his church, how can you claim, because you do claim this, how can you claim to have faith in Jesus if you play favorites? Because if you have faith in Jesus, you're going to follow Jesus, and Jesus didn't play favorites. So if you're saying you follow Jesus, why are you playing favorites? And then he kind of goes into how they were playing favorites. And here's what he says. He says, let me tell you how you guys are playing favorites. He said, you guys have these church meetings, and you have rich people come, and you have poor people come, and you're favoring the rich over the poor. And here's how you're doing it. You're giving the rich a good seat, giving the poor not such a good seat. You're kind of showing special attention to the rich, not showing too much attention to the poor. And so in our context, it looked like this. Now, I know some of the campuses downtown and Amarillo, you guys have never had to sit on chairs that were not padded, okay? But let me tell you about the Southwest scenario, okay? Since basically the beginning, all right? Bought some padded chairs at the beginning, then we ran out, and then we basically filled up with metal because chairs are so expensive, okay? So we got a mixture of some padded chairs and some metal chairs. So in kind of our context, it might be like, he's saying, hey, the rich people come in, you give them the padded chair so their booty feels good all through the service. And the poor people, okay, you make them sit in the metal chairs. If they got a bony booty, it hurts even worse, okay? And so they're in the metal chairs. And he said in their scenario, sometimes they're having the poor like sit on the floor or stand up, like, okay, here, collecting like W-2s on the way in, all right? Okay, okay, that's rich. You sit there. And he's saying, how can you do that? You claiming to have faith in Jesus. How could you do that? How could you play favorites like that? Favoring the rich over the poor. Look what he says next. So that's kind of the scenario he gives them. And again, I think this first question, you could apply it to a number of different situations. This was theirs, and this weekend and next weekend, I'm going to apply it to some situations I think are especially applicable to us. Here's what he says. He keeps going after he tells them that, how they're playing favorites. Verse 5 and 6, he says, so listen to me, dear brothers and sisters. Hasn't God chosen the poor in this world to be rich in faith? Aren't they the ones who will inherit the kingdom he promised to those who love him? But you, what? You dishonor the poor. Now, if you know your Bible very well, you know that all throughout the Bible, God condemns dishonoring the poor. Like he's saying, if you follow me, if you love me, you're going to be kind to the poor. You're going to have a heart for the poor. You're going to want to give to the poor because God has a heart for the poor. God cares about the poor. He hates it when people dishonor the poor. Let me show you some verses, just in case you hadn't seen these in the Bible, where he speaks so strongly about this. His concern for the poor and his frustration with people when they don't have the same concern for the poor. Look at this. This is Solomon. You know Solomon, we talk about him all the time. This dude is wise, okay? Bible says wisest man to ever live. Also one of the wealthiest men to ever live. This is what he said about this. Proverbs 14:31. A couple of proverbs for you. He says, those who oppress the poor insult their maker. That's not good, okay? Like those who oppress the poor, they don't help the poor, they don't care for the poor, not kind to the poor. Those people are insulting God, the maker of the poor. But helping the poor honors him. Look at another one. 28:27. Whoever gives to the poor will lack nothing. That sounds pretty good. But those who close their eyes to poverty will be what? Cursed. I have no idea what that means, but it doesn't sound good, okay? I don't know. I don't want that to apply to me. Look at one more. Look at this. This is how much he cares about the poor. Proverbs 21:13. Those who shut their ears to the cries of the poor will be ignored in their own time of need. Oh. Well, that's not good. Okay, he's saying, so if you don't take care of the poor, if you don't have a heart for the poor, passion for the poor, he's saying that when you're in need, you're going to be ignored just like you're ignoring them. Jesus, Matthew 25, go New Testament, Jesus, Matthew 25, he's talking about the end of time and separating out the Christians from the non-Christians, the righteous from the unrighteous. And you know what he does it on the basis of? Like, you know how he distinguishes between the two groups? He said, you guys come over here, those of you that gave food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, clothing to those that didn't have any, sheltered the homeless, visited the prisoner. You guys come over here, the rest of you over there. He's not saying that's how you get to heaven, okay, by helping the poor. He's just saying that's how Christians are identifiable. Always has been the case since the days of Jesus. Christians have always been known as the people who have a heart for the poor. So Jesus is saying, here's how I know who they are. It's the ones that are feeding the hungry and the ones giving drink to the thirsty. That's how I know who my followers are, because that's what people that follow me do, because that's what I did. And that's what I would do. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I read stuff like this and I get really convicted. Really convicted. Because we're not playing favorites and collecting W-2s, okay, when people come in, padded seats, metal seats. We're not doing that. But do we play favorites in some other ways? Do we favor the rich over the poor in some other ways? Do we favor ourselves over the poor in some other ways? Let me just kind of preach to myself for a second, and you just see if you agree with this, and you can apply it to yourself, but it won't be so convicting if I just preach to me for a second, okay? So you can just listen in. But am I playing favorites in my own life? If I give most of God's money that he's given to me, if I spend most of that on myself, when there's millions of people all around the world that are dying of starvation, there's millions of people all around the world that don't have clean water to drink, millions of people all around the world that are suffering from curable diseases, but they don't have the money to buy the pill that could bring them the cure. Or let's localize it, Lubbock, Amarillo, okay? Am I playing favorites when I spend most of God's money that he gives me on me when there are hungry kids in my town? Kids I know that we minister to in the schools that we sponsor that only eat one meal a day. That's the free reduced lunch they get at school because they just don't have the money to eat at other times of the day. Or the children that we've been able to help that don't have warm clothes for winter. They don't have jackets, they freeze. So we've been able to get them jackets. Am I playing favorites when most of God's money he gives to me goes to me when these kinds of things are going on? Am I playing favorites when I buy a nicer car, a newer car, bigger house, nicer house when this kind of stuff's going on? Now, I'm not against nicer cars and big houses and all that. I think that's all fine. But if you buy those to the exclusion of helping the poor, you're going to be held accountable. And God's saying, you're going to be ignored, and I'm going to be ignored in my time of need, in your time of need. If you can do both, do both. But here's what so often I've done, maybe you've done too, is we do one to the exclusion of the other. Well, we wouldn't be able to buy a nicer car if we help the poor, so we're not going to help the poor and buy a nicer car. Hey, I wouldn't make that choice if I was you. And you'll find out why here in a second. But this is convicting. I think we play favorites in other ways. And James is saying, how can you claim to have faith in Jesus? You play favorites like that. Now, you say, well, how can I know? How would you know if you're playing favorites, favoring yourself over, let's say, the poor? How would you know? It's real easy. All you got to do is look at your bank account, okay? You just go to Bank Online, okay, or get one of your statements, monthly statements, and just look at your transactions and see what they say, okay? You can get a percentage of, the money that you make that you spend on you, get a percentage that you spend on others and see what it shows you. And here's what you're going to find out. If you look at my bank account, I'm going to find out if I look at yours, for sure too, is you're going to find out by looking at my bank account, I love myself a lot. Okay? I'm sure you're going to find out about yours too. Hey, we love ourselves. We are in love with me. Okay? We sure are, because look at where all this money goes. The question is, how much are the accounts looking at them going to show that we love other people? Because what did Jesus say was the second most important thing? He said the first greatest commandment is you got to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Second, he says, like it, you got to love other people like you love you. You got to love your neighbor as yourself. There's no better way to tell if you're living that out than by looking at where you spend your money. Because regardless of what you say, regardless of what I say, what we spend our money on shows what we have a heart for. And what I'm convicted about at times is a lot of times I think what people see, look at my bank account, is I got a heart for me. And mainly me. I know if you're playing favorites, just look, just be honest. Again, it's convicting. If it's convicting, that's a good thing, because I recognize what the Bible says about being generous to those less fortunate. Now, statistics show that most of us, in some respect, are playing favorites. Most of us are. Did you know statistics actually show that this is probably the greediest generation in all of history? Did you know that? And how you can tell is by giving trends. Over the last 30 years, average American giving toward charities, the poor, churches, whatever, is going down, sloping down. Last 30 years, okay? Let me show you just so you can have a visual of what this actually looks like. These are dimes here, if you can't tell. This is 100 dimes, okay? 100 dimes, how much money? $10, okay, $10, you got that? Okay, $10. Now, I wanted to make $10 look like a lot of money, okay? Because it is. Now, to a lot of us, it's not. You can make that in an hour. Some of you make it in 30 minutes. Some of you make it 15 minutes. Some of you make it in a minute, and you got lots of money, okay? But $10 to us isn't a lot of money, but the reason I wanted to make it look like a lot of money is because around the world, this is a ton of money. A lot of people in our world make $1 or $2 a day, so sometimes it takes them a week or more to make $10. So we take for granted how much, $10 really is, because it's so much to us. So let's say, just talking about Americans in general, let's talk about just average amounts they give away of their income. So if for you, for me, for an average American, if this is $10, 100 dimes, let's talk about two different categories. Non-church person, church person. How much do you think on average somebody that doesn't go to church gives away of every 100 dimes they make? How many of these dimes do you think a non-church person gives away on average? How many would you guess? 3, 5, 10? On average, studies show if you're not a church person, for every 100 dimes you make, you give away just over 1. Just over 1. Now, if you're a church person, church people, statistically, are a little more generous, okay? Maybe they know a little bit about the Bible. They've heard the word tithe. They're like, I should be generous, okay? A little more generous. How many of church people that make every $10 they make, how many dimes do you think they give away? If you're a church person, how many do you think? 10? 15? Just over 2. So if you're not a church person, on average, in our country, you give just over a dime. If you're a church person, give just over 2. Let me ask you a question, okay? Look at these two piles here. You got this pile and this pile. Let me make this look bigger, okay? Let me put this on top here. Stack it up. Okay. This is how much we love us, okay? And for most people, on average, this is how much we love other people, I guess. Let me just ask you, and again, this isn't your financial situation, okay? Let's assume yours is so much better than this so you don't have to be convicted by it, okay? But let's just say in this financial scenario, objectively speaking, okay, look at it, 2 piles here. Is this playing favorites? Objectively speaking, is this playing favorites? I think it's playing favorites. And you know what's crazier? You're not even believe this. The more of these you make, the fewer of them you give. You're like, no, I'm going to make more money. I'm going to give more away. No, statistics say you're not going to. The more you make, the less you give away. So let's just say we're church people, so we got 2 over here. James is asking us the question. This is convicting, but we're just going through God's word talking about some applications. This is an application. James is asking you and me the question. This is the case with you, and it's the case on average, so it's probably the case with many of you. How can you claim to have faith in Jesus and live this way? That's all he's asking. How can you claim you have faith in Jesus, you care about the things Jesus cares about, the poor, and people don't know Jesus, and getting the good news out? How can you claim you know him, love him, follow him, if your financial situation looks like this? And you see most people, I mean, it's 1% for non-church people, 2% for church people, but for most people it's 0. It just balances out by those who give a little bit more. He's saying you're playing favorites. You're favoring yourself with God's money. It's not your money, God's money. You're favoring yourself over the poor. How could you do that? That's convicting to me for sure. Now, God gives us instructions in his word as to how we should spend the money he's given us. Here's what he says. This is just, y'all like money, right? Everybody likes money. They want to make a lot of money, so we're talking about money today. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. If you're not, it may be because you're greedy. Okay, here, look, check this out. 2 Corinthians, those are usually the ones that complain about giving talks, right? Because if somebody's really generous, they're like, talk about giving more. If somebody hates it when they see God's word, what it says about money, they're like, I hate it when churches talk about giving, and they're in the 1% or 0. So 2 Corinthians 9, 10 and following. This is what God says through Paul. For God is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then the bread to eat, which is awesome, right? Because you think, well, no, the farmer earned it. He worked hard. He did, I'm sure. But ultimately, everything you have and everything I have comes from God. He gave you the life, the breath, the energy, the good health. He caused your heart to beat, air in your lungs to make any money. So don't start claiming, well, I mean, God needs me because I made all this money. You wouldn't be alive if he wasn't holding you together, okay? God provides everything that you have. In the same way, he will provide. So that's one of the reasons he gives us what we have is to provide for us. We provide for our families. We should do that for sure. So he gives us money to provide for us and increase your resources. For many of us, most people in America, we have more than just what we need to provide for ourselves. We got an increase for sure. Increase your resources, and then as a result, produce a great harvest of generosity in you. So I love this. So he's telling us what to do. So I'm giving you the money that you have to provide for you and your family. That's good. You should provide for you and your family. But then I'm increasing it for some people, especially people that live in this country. I'm increasing it for some people so that you can be what? Generous. So that, check this out. This is awesome. So that you can help provide for others. I'm giving you more of my money than you need so that you can take care of some other people that are really struggling. What an awesome responsibility. He said, yes, you will be enriched, okay? Some translations say made rich. It's talking to us. You're like, well, I'm not rich. Maybe not compared to your neighbor, but I guarantee you this. You live in this country, for the most part, if you make minimum wage, okay? We're in the top 10% of the richest people in the entire world. You're very rich compared to the rest of the world. You're going to be made rich, that's us, in every way so that you can always be what? Generous. Generous. Why do we resist this? Why do we not like this? Maybe it's probably because it means less for you. I get less, can't buy that thing I want because I got to help my church, got to help the poor. I mean, Jesus says more blessed to what? Give than receive. It's more exciting, more fun to give than to receive. The only reason some people don't live like that is because they've never experienced it. They've never given, so they don't know it's so much better than receiving. We have an increase, church. You have an increase in your life. One of the reasons? Yeah, so you can have nice things. That's great. One of the reasons, though, that we forget a lot of times is so you can be generous. And specifically, we're talking about today toward the poor, toward those less fortunate, toward those that are struggling. So I think the challenge is that we should be constantly increasing in generosity. Now, here's how my wife and I have tried to keep ourselves accountable in this. We've talked to you about this at least once a year, just because this has done such a wonderful thing in our marriage and our relationship, is we keep each other accountable each year and trying to increase in generosity by doing this. We've been trying, really since we've been married, each year to increase our giving toward our church, the poor, whatever, by 1% a year or more. Just trying to increase, trying to recognize why we have an excess, why we have more than what we need, trying to increase in generosity. So I've challenged you over the last couple of years to be a part of the Increase Challenge with us. But just want you to know, this year, 2013, my wife have taken the challenge again. We've jumped it up another percentage point. Now here's the thing. When we first got married, we were both already tithers. It's just a Bible word. All it means is 10%. Bible says it's a great place to start. It's taught in the Old Testament, New Testament, early Christian history. So we believe, hey, this is important. This is important to God, important to us. So before we get married, 10%, everything we make goes right back to our church who's helping the poor getting the gospel out. So that's what we do. 10%, we get married. But we're like, 10%, if you think about it, that's not really that much. I mean, out of $100, that's $10, you get to keep 90. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's kind of low-end standard for sure. And so we decided we got to keep increasing that each year. So since we've been married, every year since we've been married, we've been trying to increase by 1% or more, just because we want to be more generous this year than we were last year, and next year than we are this year. Just curious, at all of our campuses, this may not be you, but I'm thinking it's a lot of people. How many of you guys would say you'd like to be more generous in 2013 than in 2012? Just curious, all of our campuses. Come on. Come on. Please say, okay. So then hopefully none of you are like, I was too generous in 2012. It went bad for me. I mean, that was so much money I gave away. I am coming back down off that thing, okay? No, that's not most people. Most people are like, I think this is important, okay? I want to be increasing in generosity. Here's the challenge. And again, no pressure, but we're challenging you here today. Why don't you take the challenge with me and Emily? Increase by 1% this year. Let me show you where this money goes, because this is what's so cool. As a church, we've tried to do this as well. Since the beginning, okay, I had to decide day one, when money comes into the church, how much are we going to give away? Because just because people give to us doesn't mean we're not going to give away. We're going to give away. So day one, we're going to give away. So I had to decide how much. So I look at what other churches give away. Most other churches, I found, give 7 to 8% of their yearly income away. And I just decided that's not enough. So we doubled it day one. 15%. Since day one at Experience, I've been giving away 15% every year. I'm going to show you where in just a second. But we're going to be 6 years old this year, believe it or not. 2013, we're going to be 6 years old as a church. And so we've decided, hey, 15%, that's 5 over 10. We've done that. That's kind of like a percentage per year, even though we started out with that. We all thought, why don't we increase another percentage point? So this year we decided as a staff, we're going 16%. Been church 6 years now. We're going to go 16% that we're going to give away. And last year at 15%, you guys were able to help us give away over $650,000. How awesome is that? $650,000, okay? To help the poor here and around the world, to get the gospel out. Amazing. Now, let me show you where this goes. If you grab this brochure real quick, you're going to love this. This is cool, because this is what you've gotten to be a part of. But look at the inside of this. This is basically where the money goes when you give this 15% or this year 16%. We've got to move quickly here. And you can read this on your own later, but this is exciting to get to be a part of. Over here on the left, start campuses. A lot of that we send to start campuses. This region, you start a campus in downtown Lubbock, start a campus in Amarillo, trying to start a campus each year, plant churches all around the world, so we give to start campuses. Here in the middle, serve our community. This is helping specifically with the poor. We've got local mission partners that we support, you guys support, we give money to each month, about 19 of them between Lubbock and Amarillo. We've adopted some schools that we're heavily investing in. We're 95% of the kids in these schools are under the poverty level. We help people that are struggling financially. We do these Servolution projects. You've probably heard of them or been a part of them. Last year, it looks like, in Lubbock, we got to serve over 12,000 hours. In Amarillo, over 500 hours investing in these projects. That's where some of it goes. Here on the right, share with the world. We want to help the poor around the world, get the gospel out in the whole world. Last year, look at this. We were able to build a water well in India. That's pretty cool. To help people have access to clean water. We're able to purchase thousands of Bibles in the Bhojpuri language, which is an unreached people group. They wouldn't be able to afford a Bible. We're able to get those for them. Be a part of giving away over 20,000 backpacks to some of our missionaries we support in Mexico, to some of the impoverished children there. It has some school supplies in it and things like that. But again, you can read this on your own. But this is what you guys, as you've invested financially or have gotten to be a part of. This is what the 15% is actually, going towards. So when you give to Experience Life, you're giving to help the poor, you're giving to get the gospel out, and it's just absolutely amazing what God has done as a result. Now, If you look at the far right side, there's a little card. Again, this is an opportunity for you if this is something you want to be a part of. So far to other services, this has been a hit. Everybody's saying, I want to be more generous this year than I was last year. Here's some different ways that you can respond. Here's this little card. And then here in a little bit when the band plays, we're doing this week and next week, and you can come up. We got buckets at the front, all of our campuses, and you can say, I'm increasing. I'm not playing favorites. I'm getting in the game and be more generous this year than I was last year. Here's some of the different ways you can participate. First option is, I'm going to increase by beginning to give consistently for the first time this year. That's some of you. That's great. Hey, I'm going to get started doing this thing. That's great. Second option is where I hope most people start, is I'm going to increase by taking the 3-month tithe challenge and beginning to give a tithe, that just means 10% this year. Now, 3-month tithe challenge, here's what's cool about this, if you hadn't heard this before. Basically, what we tell people is God makes it clear in His Word, He blesses you when you give. When you're generous, He blesses you. So we say, try it for 3 months, try it for 90 days. When you check on this thing today, if you do that, we're going to hold it for 90 days. And here's the thing. If in 90 days you're like, God hadn't blessed me, I'm not sure about these promises, it's never happened. But if you think that, we'll give you every dime back. It's like a savings account. We've had people treat it like that before. I'm not sure about this God-giving thing. I'm going to try it or whatever. 90 days, you want your money back. We'll give it all back to you because we know God's faithful to keep His promises. And here's what's cool about this whole 10% thing. You're like, where'd you get that? Like I told you, Old Testament, New Testament, early Christian history. But look at this practically. Practically, think about this. So for every 100 dimes you make, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now look at the two piles. Still seems like it could be playing favorites, but this seems like at least it's a good place to start. Much better place to start than something like that. And that's what the Bible teaches, 10% for every, 10% of what you make. At least that you should be returning, I believe, to the local church. Now, here's the thing. Some people are like, well, I don't have a vision for the church. That's fine. I would tell you, instead of just giving nothing, why don't you give somewhere else? A lot of times it's not that you don't have a vision for some place. It's just that you're trying to find some way to get out of being generous. But I'm telling you, it will bless your life for sure. So one thing we see that happens when people take this challenge, it's so cool, I'm going to show you a video about it, is that crazy things happen in response to generosity. God fills people with joy when they take the challenge. Some people, they'll call me or they'll email us and they'll be like, hey, here's the thing. This was a big step for me, but I started doing this. I wrote a check for this. And like the next day, my boss called me and I got a bonus for the same amount. What's God trying to say? Okay, what's He saying? It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes. Or somebody gets a check in the mail and they're like, oh my gosh, He's rewarding generosity. Or people are in a financial mess. I'm telling you, anytime somebody comes up to me and they say, I'm in a financial mess, first question I'll ask them, you giving 10% of your income away? Well, no. Well, that's probably part of the problem. Why don't you try that? And we'll talk again in a couple of months. And it clears up things for a lot of people because they recognize I hadn't been honoring God with the money He's given me. Why would I expect Him to honor me by helping me get out of my financial mess? But here's a cool story I want to show you on video of a guy in our church took this challenge. God did something awesome in his life. Take a look.
I grew up in a church where I'd never really heard the tithing. It was an Old Testament term. And I've heard the word before, but it really wasn't something that we as a church practiced. And so the concept was really kind of foreign to me. And in 2008, I went through a divorce and got into some serious debt as a result of that. Ended up with a mortgage and a bunch of payments and wasn't sure how I was going to get out of it. A friend of mine recommended this church that met in a skating rink over on 82nd Street, and I'm like, I've never heard of it before. So I'm trying to find this place, and so I find it, and one of the very first lessons that I heard was the lesson that Chris did on tithing. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I have to, this is going to be uncomfortable. And as soon as Chris finished that, he handed out little cards. And he said, take these home and pray about it. And I'm like, I said, right now, I know exactly how much, and I turned it in right there. It was God, He just spoke to me and said, you've been stingy with what I've been giving you. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel like I have anything to give. And, I really did. It's just I was reserving a little bit for me, for my needs and for things that I felt like I needed. So there was a lot of I in there. And so I decided that at that point that I was just going to really give it everything, and sure enough, God found a way. I'm still here today, and I didn't starve to death, and so a bunch of huge blessings came. from that. So I think it was just God simply changed my heart. I tried to sell my house for 2 years. It was right when the market turned down, and it was just terrible, so I was stuck with it. Within 2 weeks, after I started tithing, I got a call from my realtor, and I'd probably had maybe 4 or 5 people look at my house in 2 years. It was just nothing. It was dead. It was not the right house in the right market. And he said, I think you're going to sell your house. And I'm like, really? And so like 2 days later, they made an offer on the house that I had a surplus. And so then I was faced with a dilemma. It was the exact opposite thing. It's like, okay, God, what do I do now with these resources? I think for me, at least, my finances and my possessions, that was kind of my last stronghold. I had committed my life to Christ, and I felt like I had been a generous person. But I think God knew better. He knew that I had I was holding out. I would just encourage people to, if they're hesitant, I think that's God tugging at their heart saying, I want you to do this. Trust me.
Would y'all help me thank Mark for sharing that story? That's the second option. The third option on here is for many of you that are already tithers, like my wife and I. You say, I'm already doing 10% or 11 or 12 or 15 or whatever, but I'm going to increase by another 1% this year. I want to be even more generous this year than I was last year. That's an option as well. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pray in a second that God would give you courage, especially if things are falling apart for you financially, to recognize that this is a good first step. Bands are going to play at all of our campuses, and there's buckets at the front. And you may say, hey, like Mark, I'm ready today. I don't need to pray about this. God's already told me what I need to do. I'm going to become more generous this year than I was last year. I'm going to not play favorites anymore, and I recognize I have been. That's you. You can tear off this card, come to the front, drop it in the bucket as your way of saying, I'm in. Pastor, with you and your wife, I'm taking the increase challenge. Hope many of you will join me. But again, this is between you and God. We challenge you to do stuff. We encourage you strongly to. Not going to pressure you. It's between you and God. But I think it's easy to make a case for constantly increasing generosity. Let me pray. We'll be done. God, thanks for my friends here today. And I just pray, God, I know a lot of people are like, oh, see, I want to do this, but I'm already struggling financially. I got all this debt. And God, I guarantee you, they want your help. But you're saying you want them to be generous. And so, Lord, I think a lot of times we want your help, but we're already disobeying you with what we're doing. We're not returning to you what's rightfully yours. We're not being all that generous. And so, God, I just pray that you give people the courage and boldness to take a step of generosity today and say, hey, I'm not going to play favorites anymore. I'm getting in the game, and I believe when I do, God will bless me like he promises, and he can get me out of this financial mess that I'm in. God, do something awesome in people's lives. My life, my wife's life, as we get more generous this year. God, I pray we'd all have a vision, same vision you have for the poor and for getting the gospel out into the whole world. Nothing more important with our money that we can do than that. God, you've given us money to provide for our families and an increase so that we can be generous. God, help us all to live that out. It's difficult, it's hard, but it sets us free. And Jesus says, really is more blessed to give than receive. Help us to experience that today. In Jesus' name. Thanks for checking out one of our messages today. If you made a decision to commit your life to Christ, I'd love to know about it. You can email me at chris@experiencelifenow.com. Also, if you're interested in taking a next step, check out our website at experiencelifenow.com and click on Next Steps. Let us know if we can ever serve you in any way, and we look forward to seeing you soon.